Hello, welcome to this next tutorial. In this one we're going to do a hoodie, and if it goes well I might add a pair of pants to it at the same time. Okay, so I'm in my avatar folder. I'm just going to use the female standard one. There we go. And let's, I've got my UV editor up, not my pattern window. There we go, that's better. I knew something was wrong. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top. So we'll use a polygon, and I'm going to draw out half of the front down to about the waist, I think. Take it a little bit out, up, and over the arm, and then back in again. There we go. And now I'll just put a few curves in with edit curvature. So a little curve for the armhole, and a little curve for the neck. This one is a little bit sort of deep. I want it to be a little bit more angular than that. You see this line is coming off down here, that needs to come this way. So I've got a smoother line here. I could even shorten this one to just smooth that out even more. So nice, rounded curve. Let's try this one a little as well. Don't have much space. I think I'm going to move that back out again, and then I'm just going to move that a little bit, perhaps shorten that one. There we go. Okay, so now that's half of the front, so we want the other half of the front. So we'll right click on that middle line, or right hand line at the moment, and then unfold with symmetric editing, and that's our starting point. Right, so we'll use this for the back as well for the moment. So it's right click, copy, and right click, mirror paste. We'll just paste that over the other side. There we go. Okay, so as normal it's Shift F to get our arrangement points, and I'll arrange the back one around the back. And let's just move that out of the way. Pop that in the front. Oops, perhaps the one above it. There we go. Shift F to turn it off. And then we can sew it up. So sewing up is ever so easy. Just use the segment sewing in the 3D view and click on the two lines that you want to sew together. Now sometimes if you click close to the line or point close to the line, see the line is highlighted there, but if I click, nothing happens. So you have to be real close to the line for it to take. So sometimes that's been really frustrating. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. I don't think my other side took. There we go. There. So both sides are done now. That's why I got confused. And then I'll do the shoulders there. I didn't need to do that there. I can do it here as well, of course. See, I was not clicked close enough to that line. Now I have, and it's good. There we go. So that's kind of a starting point. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. So one thing, you will often get a little bit of a bulge around here because this line is not quite right. One thing you can do to correct that is first of all turn off your simulation, and then with the edit pattern tool select each of your lines. There we go, and turn the elastic on, and then set the ratio to 100%. Now what 100% means is don't stretch it. Try and keep it as close to its original size as you can. And when I press space, you should see that tightens up a little bit and deals with that little bit of a bulge. There we go. It's all standing a bit high off the character at the minute, so I'm going to click on the avatar and change my skin offset down to 1, and that will settle a bit nicer then. There we go. Okay, so that's the basics of thing. At some point in time what we'll do is we're going to cut down the middle here to split this open, but for the moment I think that's okay. Right, so next then we'll come in and do the arms, so I'll talk to you then. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is, because these are the same front and back currently, I'm going to select this edge here around the armhole and right click and offset as pattern outline. I'm just going to move that out a bit and then we'll give it some distance so that I can see what's going on. And we can see that this is coming out nice and perpendicular and this is going up like this. We could change that, but I'm not sure it's a good idea. So extend is definitely not what I want, mirror is not. So yeah, let's leave it as it is. So what I need here is an internal line, because I want to split this off from here and I want the internal line to recreate the armhole. So I'll click OK there, and then selecting that internal line, right click and cut and sew. Okay, so traditionally now what we would do is just grab this one here and I'm going to move it downwards so it's roughly kind of perpendicular, or level with that one, and then we'll bring this one across. Going to right click on this and delete all the curve points because I don't want any curve points there, and we can actually line these up properly by selecting them both using a line and middle. Whoops, not middle, it's the other one, I always get it wrong. So it's a line and center, so now they're properly lined up. Now if I right click on this line and unfold, I've now got the back as well. So we can grab this middle line and move it outwards a bit to get our sleeve. But this won't wrap properly, so what we need to do is point it upwards so that the curve is at the top, and then we can select this piece, use Shift F and select an arrangement point on the arm. And because we cut it off of the shirt piece, the front will be sewn. We just need to sew the back up now. Let me just move that out of the way. So if I go to my segment sewing tool, so this is sewn, now I need to sew this one, and I'm going to click near the middle there, or sorry, near the middle of the sleeve, and that bit will be at the top of the armhole. So if I then click there, that should do the job. There we go. So those match now, and we can start to sew them up fully. So if I sew from side to side as well, there we go, we're starting to get a sleeve. Now it's a bit baggy, that's okay, all we need to do is make this line a little smaller. So I'm going to delete this middle point because I don't really need it, and then with this line I'm going to right click and change length, and I'll take it down to about 250, but set the direction to both so it tapers in on both sides, and click OK, and now I'll press space, and now it's starting to look like a slightly baggier arm, as you'd expect with kind of a hoodie garment. Okay, so I'm just going to extend this down now, and if you go too far you're going to get this kind of arrangement which is not going to work very well. So it's best to just take it down a few at a time, let it sim, take it down a little more, let it sim, and so on and so forth until you get as far as you want. And that's probably a bit too far because I want to put a cuff on there, so I need to leave space for that. There we go. Okay, oops, oh, this arm's not behaving at all. Well, should be able to pull it down. It's a bit awkward sometimes, but just try and find an angle where you can see the cloth that is poking, and then pull it, in the direction that will bring it out of the cloth. There we go. Let it settle. Okay. Just going to pull it around a bit until it starts to behave as I want it to. You should do. Everything is, as it should be. It's just sometimes it doesn't. You just need to give it a bit of encouragement. Okay, so let me move that over there. Okay. Right, so we can bring the bottom down here a little bit. I think this is a little too short. Just remember to do front and back at the same time, like I didn't, and then press space, and if you need to you can just pull any poking bits out of there. There we go. Okay, so let us split the front. So I want an internal line from the very top to the very bottom of the front piece. Double click, and then we can select that internal line. I need to take the mirroring off first. Right, so let's remove linked editing. Now I can select this middle line and right click, and going to cut and sew for the moment. Oh, it's a bit like that, is it? Let's have a look. I think, oh no, it's done it, it's fine. What that is just said is there was a problem with the pattern, but it can deal with it as long as it turns it into triangles, which is a bit annoying, because I prefer it to be quads. You just have to keep an eye on that. So let me select those two bits, right click, and set that back to quadrangulate, and that should be okay. Okay, so the next bit then is to put a hood on, which we'll do in the very next bit, so I'll talk to you then. Okay, so what we need is a couple of big squarish pieces, which are essentially the length of one side. So if I select this one and I select this one, I get a combined length of 230.8 millimeters. So with a rectangle, I'm going to put it at 238 wide and perhaps 300 tall. Might adjust that, you know, doesn't really matter at the moment. And click OK, and then I want to round off the back of this. So I'm just going to click there and just round that off by clicking down, and that's with the smooth curve tool. Okay, so with that done, I can now attach this to the garment. So I'm just going to select it, move it to, whoops, not like that. It's going to rotate it around so it's side on, and then let's pop that down next to her head. It's going to make my life a little bit easier. So if this is the front of the hoodie, or the hood, and this is the front of the garment, I need to sew with my segment sewing tool, end to M segment. So this is my first segment, my M, and I press enter, and I want to attach to that segment and that segment, and then press enter again, and that should sew those up perfectly. And then if I select this and copy and mirror paste, we can then set up the symmetric pattern editing again. So select them both, right click, and symmetric pattern with sewing, and you'll see actually, because this part isn't symmetric, it didn't do it. So we just need to sew that bit up. That's okay, it's no big deal. If we go to free sewing, we can sew from the front to the shoulder, and then from the front to the end of the last seam there. And now we sew the whole thing up from side to side. There we go. So when I press space on this, it's going to attempt to fit, and if I've made it too small, which I have, it's going to be too tight, like that. So I can pull this out as much as I like. I'm just going to end up with a really tight hood. So we can adjust the size using the edit pattern. So if I just select the tops here and move those up, the further up I go, the looser it's going to end up. So let me just pull that over the front. There we go. could just pull these around a bit. It's not going to behave completely well at the moment because the particle distance is very low, so it's restricted in its movement a little bit. But just keep adjusting until you're happy with the size. It's not the only thing we can do. Whoops, didn't mean to leave that bit out. It's not the only thing we can do. I've done it again. What's going on? There we go. It's not the only thing we can do to adjust the size. There's a few other things as well, but we'll get to those when we adjust the garment a little later. Let me just see if I can puff this out. Oops, getting in a tangle. Yeah, no, I've just not got enough geometry just yet. Never mind, we'll get there in the end. Okay, so that's kind of the basic hood. So next we'll come in and we'll start to refine this to, you know, get it looking how we want to. So I'll talk. Okay, so we can make some adjustments to this. Yeah, rather depends on what you're going for. So if you want to make the aperture, you know, wider, you can simply grab one side and move it all backwards. But what we're doing there is extending this line, and that's going to mismatch the seam lines between the hoodie and the neck, which may cause a bit of bunching. Just let that work itself out. There we go. So there we go, it can be done, but you have to be aware of what you're doing, you know, because extending those seam lines, you know, is going to affect how this, you know, how this essentially turns out. If you want to make the front a little wider, we're getting into cow territory here, aren't we? It's a little bit too, how can I put it, priestly, is that the word? I don't know. Okay, so we could adjust that. If I don't want to make it any taller, but I do want my front to be a bit wider, I can just pull that top one over, and that's going to give me lots of extra room, but it's going to bring it forward over her face. And now we're really going priestly, aren't we? There we go. Let's pop that back the way it was, more or less, and I'm going to make this just a little shorter here. There we go. Let's press space. So that's quite good. Now another thing is that the material you use is going to make a difference. So currently I have just like the default fabric on here, but if I switch this to another fabric, we're going to get some slightly different results just as soon as that works. There we go. So we want something probably a bit fleecy, don't we? So let's type in fleece. Well, let's spell it right first. So we've got some knit fleece, we've got some Sherpa fleece. I'm just going to have a look at them, see which ones are light and which ones are heavy. So those are about the same as it's that one. Oh, that's fun. Let's try that one. What weight was that? 230. So let's drag and drop that onto our fabric here, and you'll see immediately you start to get a slightly different result, because you know this is a stiffer fleece, so it's, you know, standing up much better than it was previously, at which point in time you'll want to adjust it or use a different one. So let's try another one which looks a little bit different perhaps. I want a lighter. I think they're all much the same. These things the difference on these ones may be more in the way of material than anything else, in terms of you know, the what am I trying to say? Yeah, the visual material rather than the simulation material. So actually that one is not doing me too badly at all. So I'm just going to try and pull that out a little bit there. Okay. Right, so we have our basic fleece, and you know, you can obviously, you know, mess with your materials, mess with the shape, you know, work it how you want. You know, if you don't want quite so much down the bottom, instead of moving the whole back, you could perhaps move this a little bit this way, and that will take a bunch of that material out and make it a bit less full, as it were. So yes, adjust your shape, check your materials, you know, work it, see how it lies, see how it hangs, and then we go from there. Okay, so next I'm going to start to add trims to this. So I'm going to add a waistband, some wristbands, and a band around the hood itself. So I will talk to you then. And now I've pressed the wrong button. I've pressed delete instead of stop recording. Okay, so let's pop some trims on this. So first of all, I'm going to do the sleeve. So this is 250 wide. Let's get a rectangle up and just left click in the viewport, 250mm, and we'll give it a little bit of distance. Let's make it 40, should do. There we go. Okay, so with that selected, Shift F to get your arrangement points up, and then arrange it around the wrist, and then Shift F to turn them off. And now we can sew it up. So segment sew those together, the sleeve and the wrist piece, and then sew the wrist piece ends up. There we go. Now this is a bit baggy, and it's baggy because it's the same size as our main piece. So what I'm going to do is just double click on that middle to adjust both sides, and then just bring that down a little bit until it's a nice kind of difference. You might want it tight, in which case make it much smaller, or you might want it a little looser, in which case make it a little bigger. Okay, so with that selected, we can right click and copy, right click and mirror paste, pop it over the other side. It's going to be somewhere crazy in space, but if we select both, right click and symmetric with sewing, it will sew it up to this arm, and then we can arrange it on that point. So Shift F, arrange it around the wrist, Shift F to turn them off because they're annoying, and then press space, and there we go. That's our sleeve trims. So at the bottom, what I want to do is create a bit for the back. So what we'll do for that is I want to select one of these lines and then read the 3D length, or the 2D length actually, but I want both of those, so I need to drag select over them, and even that doesn't work. So it's 201 times 2. So let's make it 402, 403.2. So 403.2. That doesn't seem likely, but yeah, perhaps it is. And let's make it consistent, and we'll use 40 again, and then click OK. And now we can sew these up. So we'll use our free sew for this because we've got a difference in segments. So I'm just going to sew right across there. There we go. And if I select this piece, I'm just going to arrange it around the back, somewhere around there. That's just to make sure the seams are all set up right. And then we'll do a Shift F to turn those on, and then we'll do the front. So we want one that is this size, so it's 201.6, of course it is. So 201.6, whoops, that's a 3, and 40, and click OK. And then I'll sew this one up. Oops, don't need that one now, I can just use the segment sew. And then I'll copy and mirror paste this Oops. So right click, copy, or Control C, right click, mirror paste, or Control R. So let's sew that up again. There we go. Okay, now if I let this sim, that will bring those all together, but you'll notice that I haven't done up the front and I haven't done up the sides, and that's because I want them to be a single piece. So what I'm going to do is merge these two together. So that's this line and this line. So that one and that one. I'm going to right click on those lines and merge, and I'll do the same for the other side. This time it will be that one. So it's this one and this one. Right click and merge. Oh no, that didn't seem right. It's just not that one, it's this one over here. So it's this one and this one. Right click and merge. There we go. And now I press space and I've got a single piece. And the reason I do that is because when I have one long piece, while it's annoying on the UV, I do have one long piece which I can texture quite easily. It's not that I have three pieces and I've got to match all the seams up. I've got one piece. I've got one seam to match up, and that's at the front, which isn't going to join up, so don't have to worry about that too much. Okay, so next then is the hood. So if I select this one, I'm going to right click and offset as internal line. I'll make it nice and consistent. We'll have 40mm. Make sure extend is on and click OK, and I can right click on that and cut and sew. And now I've got a trim around the front. And now with all these trims we can give them different properties and make them behave in different ways, which might help us at some point in time. Let me just press space, make sure everything's working still. That's fine. Okay. So next then I'm going to give those some thickness. So I will talk to you in the next section. Okay, so let's give the illusion of thickness on this bottom strip first. So I'm going to right click and we're going to use the layer clone over. It's not something I use very often, but it at least works. So the reason I don't use it is because it uses an odd sewing method. If I edit this, see I've got a single seam and it's just going around it. So in some places it's okay, it's not a problem. In other cases it's a bit annoying. So let me just set the sim going and see what happens. And that's pretty fine. Okay, so now on the bottom one, because I wanted to give the illusion of thickness outside this application, not in this application. So I'm going to right click and flip that normal the other way so that the normal is consistent. If not, then the normal will be back facing in the other application, and depending upon how that renderer is set up, it may or may not render it. But if the normal is the right way, it should render it. Okay, so that's pretty good. Except I want to give it a little bit of definition, and I want to give this bottom a little bit of definition, and I'm going to do that with some internal lines. So let me select this. This is the top piece, so I'm going to select the whole, right click and then offset as an internal line. Let's make that 2mm for two offsets and click OK, and then that should pop out a little bit better because it has more geometry to work with. So it's going to kind of allow a more of a fold where they come together. Similarly, on the bottom of our thing here, I'm going to select that one, that one, right click and offset its internal line, but this time I'm just going to give it 1. Oops, not 3, 1, and OK. And that again will give it a chance to just bend a little bit and give us a little bit more of a shape. Now it's a bit odd to see with these on, but if you come up here to the 3D garment displays and uncheck internal lines, I hope you can see a little bit better that is actually making a difference. Okay, so essentially that is going to be the same for the cuffs and the same for the hood piece. The only thing different I'm going to do on the hood piece is I'm going to join these two bits together. So if I select that one, it knows I'm selecting that one now. I can right click and merge those together to make one hoop. Again, texturing, if I've got one long piece with just the seam at either end, it's going to be easier for me to match those up and make it look good. Okay, I'll stop waving my arms around now and punching my mic. Okay, so for this one then, I'm just going to select the front and the back and then offset as internal line, and this time I think I will give it 2 just for fun. I can always delete it if not. Okay, so let's press space again, and now I can go ahead and make my thickness. So I'm going to do those between videos because you don't want to see me do it 100 times. It just makes this longer. When we come back, I think I'll probably put the zip in. I think that's going to be necessary. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so a zip is fairly straightforward, except we need to remove a seam line first. So in this seam line between these two, which I've accidentally removed between takes, we need to delete it. So I'll just pop it back in so we can see, and then I'm going to delete it out. Okay, and now if I let it sim, it's going to drop open a bit, and I'm just going to let it sim a little bit so it's not too far apart. And then on the 3D view, using the zipper tool, I want to start at the top of my zip and just go down a bit, and oops, just keep an eye on whether it overextends itself. So I'm just clicking a few times, and I want to go down right to the bottom there, and when I'm at that bottom I can double click on it to finish that line. Sorry, that was my fault, I got overexcited and triple clicked. So down to the bottom and double click, and then we want to do the same on the side we want the zip to attach to. They don't have to be all equal, we're just defining it, and then double click at the end, and voila, we have a zip. And if I press the space button, you'll see that nicely does up, and we have a zip on our hoodie. Okay, so I believe we can also undo this zip, and perhaps that's on the tool itself while the sim is running. If I grab the top, oops, I should be able to grab the top, perhaps it's not that tool, perhaps I'm getting it wrong. There is a way of doing it. I'll refresh myself and show you in the next bit. But anyway, that's putting a zip in, really easy. Once you take it out and put it into substance or something, it might be a little bit more tricky. Not substance, I mean when you rig it in whatever you're going to use, but that's the zip tool. Okay, right, so I'm going to figure out what's going on there. I know it can be done, I'm just not sure which tool I need to be on, so I'll work that out and I'll be back. Okay, so as I said, you can open this zip, but my mistake was being on the having the simulation running at the time. I thought you had to do that, but you don't. So all you need to do is on the select move tool is select the slider on the zipper. See, I've selected this, and now I can just move it. See, as it moves down, and it will move along the path of the zip until it's down as far as you want it to be. If you go right to the end, it will completely open. So there we go. That's how you do the open and close the zip if you want to. Okay, so that was that. Next, I think, what do we need? We need a couple of dangling ties down here. So we'll do that in the next bit. Okay, so I want to put some drawstrings around here. So these are going to be at the end. So what I want to know is which pattern is this. So it's this one here. So one of the things that's going to limit me a little bit here is the particle distance. So I'm just going to change both of these down to, I don't know, 10. It's probably not quite enough, but you know, we'll see. Okay, and then on my internal ellipses here, I'm just going to, whoops, I had to write in the wrong place. So from like the bottom corner, I'm going to press shift and just draw out a little circle here. And click OK. Oh, no, that's not what I want. What is going on? Right, shift held down. There we go. I must have right clicked there. Let me just center this up a bit. There we go. So this is going to form my hole, and what I want to do is offset this a little bit so that I've got a ring. So let me offset as internal line. We don't want 2, we just want the 1, and somewhere around 4mm I should think will be okay. And now I can cut this middle piece out. Now we've got symmetric editing set up between these two, so I'm just going to break that, and then these circles that appeared on the other one I'm going to get rid of. There we go. So for this internal line here, I'm going to double click on it, right click and cut and sew, and that's going to come out of there, and we could put a different zone on that if we want. And similarly this one, we're going to cut and sew this as well, because I definitely want to put a different zone on that one. Okay, so to put a little kind of drawstring coming off here, we're going to attach something to this smaller circle. So I'm going to draw out something which is a little bit wider, and not too much wider, and then we're going to put a line across our piece here. So I want the internal poly tool. I just click on one point and then come across and double click on the other point, and then we can sew these together. So I can use a segment sew and just pop those there. There we go. So to avoid it catastrophically going nuts, I'm going to get this somewhere close eventually. I hope you're better at, you know, figuring out where you are in 3D space than I am. I'm sure you are. There we go. Just pop that there and let that simmer. Now we seem to have a little bit of trouble, but it's working itself out. But the actual tie is dipping in a little bit, so you might just need to do what I just did and let that, you know, come out a bit. Let me just drop this a little lower. Let's grab the edit pattern tool. Just going to drop this down and press space, let it sim. Oops, I don't want to pull it into the thing, I want to pull it out. At this point in time it might be a layer issue. If I stick this on layer 1 I should have a few less problems. Yeah, or not, because it's taking the top of the thing to be the layer I want to go to, and it's not. So let's put that back to layer 0 and pull that back through. I might need to actually pull it up or even reset it now. Oh, it's annoying with layers when you've got, you know, two things really close together. Unless I'm on the wrong one, of course. So was I on the wrong one in the first place? It's quite possible. No, I was on the right one. Okay, let's stop the sim with the space bar and I can pull this away now and underneath, and there we go, we're back where we should be. Okay, now of course I've got to do that on the other side as well, but we can do that if I double click on this line here, this open circle. Come on, select, damn you. Let's turn sim off because that's probably affecting me now. And Control C, Control V. I'm just gonna, no, it's already done it. Already done it for me. How wonderful. Because I had symmetric editing on. So let's get rid of these internal circles here. And that one. Right. This one I want to cut. And so. And this one I also want to cut and sew. Just move these out of the way a little bit, just so I can see them and manipulate them as I need to. We'll pop an internal line across our piece here. Oops, with the internal line tool, of course. Oops, missed the pattern there. Double click. And then I'll take a copy of our little string here. Control C, Control V, and then sew it up. Right, try and get that somewhere near the right place. Oh, I think I was a bit closer this time. There we go. Let that sim. Okay. Now, because I don't want it to be symmetrical, I'm just going to grab this one and whoops, not that, not the point. I want to grab this one and drag it down a little bit. I'll just have to pull that out if it doesn't work itself out. No, it's worked itself out. That's good. Okay, so we can give these a little thickness as well. So if we go to the pattern transform, right click, and what will we do? We will layer clone over. Just pop that off to one side. And then if I right click here and offset as internal line, what do I say, 2mm, and we'll give it 2 iterations, and OK, and press space, just let the sim run. And I think actually I've got these kind of flipped, so let me flip this one. There we go. When you layer clone over, you automatically set up linked editing, so I've got, you know, my shaping lines on both sides, so you know that kind of works for me there. Similarly, we'll do the bottom one. Oops, zoom out. I'll tell you what, if I click on this pattern piece here and then in the 2D window press F, it will zoom to it, so that just makes life a bit easier. So we'll layer clone under on this one, and then right click, offset as internal line, 2mm, 2 steps, and press space. And then on the bottom one, that needs to be right clicked and flipped that normal. There we go. Okay, so that's a couple of drawstrings. You can go a bit further. You could add some tabs to the end of those, or some fraying or something. I'm going to leave it there as for the moment. What I'm going to do next is come in and mess with my perhaps visual materials to, you know, see where I can go. Okay, so I shall talk to you then. Okay, so what have we got? Well, first of all, I want these to be a different colour, so I'm going to duplicate our original, so let's pop that down there, and we'll call this strings. And for the colour on these, I'm going to take off the texture that it's put on, and that's going to turn them white. So I need to apply that to the strings, so those ones there, oops, oh come on, and these ones up here, just with this little button. There we go. I also want a metal, so we'll add a material and we'll call it metal. And for this one I'm going to change the type from fabric matte to metal. I'm going to leave it white, I think, and then we're going to apply that to our little rings. Let me zoom out and zoom back in again. Oh come on, move. My fingers, you know, I use so many different 3D applications that my fingers sometimes forget which one I'm in. There we go. So they should be nice and metally when we go into the proper mode. And I don't want this to be black. Sorry, I don't want this to be this grey colour, so I'm just going to give it a name first. Well, just call it Hoodie, I guess. And we'll change this hoodie from plastic to fabric matte, and I think what I'm going to do is come down here. See, there's a desaturation button. I'm going to take that out, and that's going to take the saturation out but still leave me with the actual texture. And then down here on the colour I can do what I need to do with it. So let me take that down to a dark blue, I think, just to, so it's not completely black. So we've still got, you know, our ribbing here, which is, you know, perhaps going to be baked into the texture. And there we have it. Essentially, we've got a hoodie. Let me press Shift A to get the model back. Yeah, let's go into the slightly better render mode, and there we are. Oh, got a little bit of poke over here. Let's press space, let it sim. Just give that a little tug. I haven't really sort of gone down from 20 on my pieces yet. So what I'm going to do is select one piece, right click on it, select all with the same property, and fabric. So all those I'm going to put to 10 to match the trim around the top. I like to keep them the same. I'm just weird like that, even though it you know, is going to slow down my machine, and it really is. And then actually everything could be 10. I don't know why I've selected a material to do it. Oh, everything is at 10. Excellent. Let's just click 10. I'm going to press space to let it sim. That's going to refine it because it's got more geometry, so it's got more ability to bend and flex and stretch and all sorts of things. But there we go. There we have it. Oh, I've got one last thing to do, I suppose. She's got no pockets. Can't have a hoodie without pockets. So the very last thing I'm going to do is pop some pockets in here. So I'll talk to you in the next bit. Okay, so pockets are pretty straightforward. I'm just going to zoom in as soon as my brain stops twiddling the thing. If I select that pattern piece, I'll just press F and it will zoom right to it. Okay, so I want to make sure that these two are linked, because if they're not, I'm going to have to do this twice. So let's just right click on those and symmetric pattern with sewing. Symmetrize can only be applied to mirrored patterns. Okay, I can't do it, so I'm going to have to do it twice. Not a problem. So what we'll do is with internal shape, I'm going to draw out a pocket shape on my on one side. There we go. Come on, are you doing something? Yes, you are. There we go. Let me turn this render mode off, because that can really, how can I put it, mess with your performance. Okay, so with that selected, I can go copy, and then I'll mirror paste it onto the other side, using those pink lineups to kind of gauge if I've got it in the right place. There we go. So with that selected, or just the internal line selected, I'll right click and clone as pattern, and just pop that off to one side. I'm going to set the layer to 1, and then we'll sew it up. So what I want to do is use free sew. I'm going to sew all around except that little, well, goodness, I haven't sewn all around. So I'm going to sew all around except this diagonal piece, and then we'll sew that to the pattern, and then select the pattern, right click and superimpose over, and eventually it will catch up with me. There we go. And now I can copy and paste this. So copy and mirror paste, and then I can sew this one up. So free sew again. This time we'll go the other direction, doesn't really matter. There we go. And now if I select it, right click on the 3D view and superimpose over. Now, one thing here is that these are going to be very, very close together. So I'm just going to select both of these and offset as internal line first. Just going to add those lines, which are going to give it some definition. But what I'm also going to do is make it a little bit baggy. So let me press space to let it sim. And you'll notice that they are so close together you can't really tell it's a pocket. And that's because the pattern sizes are the same. But what we can do is make this line a little longer, and if I do, whoops, let's turn the sim off. If I select each of my internal lines here, if I can, I might have to do it one at a time. Excuse me. Let's get closer, it's easier to select. So I'm going to select this one on, and I'm going to turn the elastic on, but I'm not going to constrict it, I'm going to expand it. So the ratio I'm going to put to, say, 120, and that will make it 120% of its original size. So, you know, the smaller the number, you know, 50%, it will make it 50% of its original size. If you go higher than 100, it will start to get longer. So let's see if that works, and it kind of does. So it starts pushing out the edge of the pocket there. Now these are still on 20, so it's going to be a bit jagged. So if I select the whole piece there, I'll do the other one as well, and pop these to 10 like everything else is. That should be a little bit less jaggedy around the pocket. That's it. See how it looks. Okay, it's a bit better. Perhaps 120 is a little much. So let's select that line again. Again, it's easier if you get closer. Maybe 110 would be a bit more appropriate. The bigger your number, you know, the more extreme your number, the more jaggedy it tends to get. And if you ever wonder which of your lines have got elastic on the 2D pattern, they'll show as green. So let's do this one as well, not that one, that one. So elastic and 110. Make sure your sim's off, because you know, as soon as you click elastic and the sim's on, it will contract, and that can cause you problems. Okay, let's press space. then it's and there we go, sprang out a bit, but it's come back in again. So let me just come out a little further. Going to turn the sim off and then turn the better mode on, and now we've got a hoodie with pockets. Terrific. Yeah, I've got one just like it. I've got loads. I have loads of hoodies. Okay, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found something useful in there. You know, I really hope that, you know, while a lot of my things are quite basic, I hope that, you know, even some, you know, people who've been using it for a while might pick up a trick or two. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you have any questions, pop a comment, and I'll talk to you again soon.